Hey everybody, Stinger here. I want to invite you to a pretty cool podcast.
Watch the film. Be quite nice. Have a good time. You'll be very evil. And you'll love that Danhausen.
Hey, this is Big Sexy Kevin Nash.
Yes, it is I, Big E, but more importantly, it is you.
And you might remember me from such YouTube greats as Being the Elite and Chris Daniels Almost Dies.
And if you're looking for the very best wrestling content, you better come to Good Mic Work Commentary.
And I'm just going to tell you now, as a role model, you got to tune into this because if you also want to be a role model, you got to learn from the best.
We have a rapport, and we have been so close over so many years. This is not a cameo or a paid endorsement in any regard. This is a message of friendship.
Man, we met 20 years ago, 21 years ago now. Time is flying, isn't it?
I want to wish you all the best in your YouTube channel, and hopefully I can maybe make a special guest appearance on there sometime.
And I used to say, hey, Greg Morgan, and he used to say, please call me Greg, and I wouldn't do it.
Good mic work. Commentaries.
Awesome YouTube channel. Now, if you've seen these videos before, you know what I'm talking about.
We would do verbal chain wrestling. You know, we'd be off in the yard, the schoolyard at recess.
And he's also a 40-year-old wrestling fan. That's a long damn time.
And we'd just be staring at each other, and he'd say, hammerlock. And I'd say, all right, I've reversed the hammerlock into a hammerlock of my own, then I put you in a headlock. And, you know, that would go on for hours.
He's not going to fill your head with bullshit. He's going to tell you real deal, what's up, and that's that.
Raw, SmackDown, NXT. This guy covers it all, my friends. I want you to go to his page, Good Mic Work on YouTube.
Check out Good Mic Work Commentaries on YouTube.
But we would have fun. We would run around. There would be a wooden hoop we would hit with a stick, and it would go down a hill.
I'm about to go and watch a few videos myself.
It's a very practical apparatus.
We're really lacking in the world right now with some people that have a freaking brain cell.
And now look at him. He has more YouTube views and subscribers than I do, and I'm fine with it because I played such an integral role in his upbringing.
Don't you dare be sour.
We always talked about wrestling. He was a big Lou Thez guy, and of course I had an affectation for the Hackenschmidts.
Clap for Good Mic Work Commentaries.
This is RJ City, a wrestling rock on tour.
And feel the power.
Listen to the podcast, subscribe.
You are watching Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Good mic work commentaries.
Just want to encourage all you guys to check out Good Mic Work Commentaries.
And if you don't, we're gonna have a problem.
Do it.
Do it.
Do it now.
Thanks a lot for the encomium and the nice words about my father's Hall of Fame induction.
Hope our paths cross again sometime down the road. Would love to shake your hand again, and good luck on this podcast.
And you don't just watch it one time. You can rewatch every single one of them.
And now, Good Mic Work Commentaries and Greg Morgan presents the Winged Eagle Podcast.
Happy Saturday. Man, it feels good to be back for a Winged Eagle podcast. I think it's been 3 weeks since we've been here live for a Saturday podcast due to WrestleMania and the WrestleMania Fallout weekend and all my catching up in my personal life and everything that's been going on. I don't think we've been here since about a week or so before WrestleMania 39, so it feels good to be back on your April 15th, 2023. Hope you did your taxes today. And we have got a lot to get into. It's going to be pretty casual this week. We got to talk about our two best friends, CM Punk and Vince McMahon. It seems like the two of them have been dominating Winged Eagle podcast headlines and thumbnails for the better part of a year now. So we have to get into a lot regarding both of them, specifically CM Punk, and there now does appear to be legitimate, real, actual plans in place for him to return to the company this summer. And with the announcement a couple of weeks ago by Tony Khan that they're going to be running Wembley Stadium in August, I don't see how you book a show that large without the understanding that CM Punk is going to be back. So we're going to talk about the implications, what the reports are. I'm going to read you a really good write-up from Fightful Select a couple of days ago, detailing or outlining some of the possible plans, nothing confirmed, but some talks of what CM Punk might be doing, including that new Saturday show that's going to be debuting apparently in June. I believe Andrew Zarian from Mat Men did get a date on this, which I think is going to be in June in Chicago, and how CM Punk could factor into that debut heading into the summer and Wembley Stadium. We might have yet another chance at a summer of Punk. Who would have thought? But it's been a crazy year. We're going to talk a lot about CM Punk. We're going to talk a lot about Vince McMahon. A lot of panic regarding Vince after WrestleMania. Big blow to the company when they sold, and Vince McMahon and his mustache was back at WWE TV, at Gorilla, making creative changes, throwing a lot of people into panic, disarray, and frustration. Vince has been absent from TV ever since then, but that doesn't mean he's still not involved. We'll talk about the latest with Vince McMahon now that we're starting to get an understanding of what his role will be, and hopefully it will shed some light on what his role will be once the transition and transaction with Endeavor and WWE is complete, which could take anywhere from 3 to 8 months, depending on, the circumstances. So we'll be talking about Vince. We'll be talking about CM Punk. Also want to talk about WWE changing the name of King of the Ring to Night of Champions now. We talked about the AEW show as well. We'll talk a little bit about that Collision show and what they could be doing on that show, including some of the rumblings of a soft brand split to accommodate all the wrestlers' feelings. I'm going to say right now, I'm not a fan of that at all. I think that's an asinine concept, but we will talk about it. Also, Discovery Plus and HBO have merged. Could be a new home for AEW streaming in the future. That's kind of an interesting story. We want to wish the best to Mickie James, who did have to relinquish her Impact title. Very sad. We're going to talk about Drew McIntyre as well. Might be sitting out the rest of his contract to see what kind of deal he can get at the end of his current deal with WWE, which apparently ends sometime near the end of the year. So Drew might be testing the market. We'll talk a little bit about that and where the best place for him might be. We're also going to talk about the WWE draft. Looks like the date is set. They mentioned this last night on SmackDown. I believe it's going to be April 28th through May 1st. So it'll be a Friday and a Monday night. The draft will begin on a Friday and end on Monday Night Raw. That'll be coming up here in just a couple of weeks, so we can detail that. And I want to get a lot of your opinions and ideas of who you think would be best to be switching brands. I've got a few ideas, but would love to get some impact or input from you guys. Other than that, we'll talk a little bit about Raw. We'll mention some ratings. I want to talk about Dynamite as well this week, which I wasn't home to watch live or do a reaction with you guys, but I did watch it. Thought it was good. Some of it was good, some of it not so good. And of course, I have a lot of thoughts and comments on the return of Jeff Hardy, which we saw on Monday as well. I'm not going to talk at all about SmackDown last night. You want to know why? I didn't watch it. I didn't want to. I didn't have time. Didn't look like it was a great show. Anyway, it kind of looked like it sucked, to be honest. So I am SmackDown illiterate. All I know about SmackDown is that we did see the return of Shinsuke Nakamura, who defeated Madcap Moss last night. So welcome back, Shinsuke. Apparently, Nakamura is going to be feuding with Karrion Kross. That could be good. So I think the two of them are buddies, so that should make for an interesting program, and maybe can finally get Kross on the map because he's done a big pile of dicks ever since he's come back to the main roster. So we'll see how that goes for him. Other than that, we might preview Backlash a little bit, look ahead to Double or Nothing with the Four Pillars match, some Night of Champions stuff, and anything else you guys want to talk about pertaining to Cody, Vince McMahon, CM Punk, King of the Ring, Night of Champions, I should say, Money in the Bank, and then, of course, SummerSlam coming up in Detroit. What a crazy few months we have ahead of us if you're a wrestling fan when you think about Double or Nothing, Night of Champions, Backlash, Forbidden Door, Money in the Bank, SummerSlam, All In, All Out. Between now and Labor Day, we got a lot of stuff to talk about and a lot to watch. So if you're a fan of wrestling, got very little to complain about this summer, it would appear. So that's kind of what's on the menu for today. You guys know the drill. Please smash that thumbs up button if you don't mind. Also, please subscribe. On the road to 40,000. Subscribers are ticking up nicely lately on the channel, so we'll ride this algorithm wave for as long as it lasts. And hopefully, during this time, we can get up to that 40K mark, which should happen sooner rather than later based on the growth we've been experiencing lately. So thank you to all the new subscribers we've had coming in, all the new channel members as well. and everybody else who has located me recently and found me on social media or anywhere like that, welcome aboard. Thanks for being here. Thumbs up, subscribe, notifications, drop a comment below if you are watching this on demand. All of that stuff helps out the channel very, very much. So please do that. I would appreciate it. We are going to knock out some shout outs here, and then I'll talk about what you can expect from me this weekend. Shout out, do some super chats and all that kind of good stuff. In terms of the weekend, big watch along planned for tomorrow night. WWE Backlash 2003. I let YouTube vote on this. I put a poll up, a public poll, not just for members, but for everybody, and let you guys pick between 4 shows. And as usual, the show I wanted to win came in last place. The choices were WCW Spring Stampede 1994, WCW Uncensored 1996. That was the one I was rooting for. ECW Barely Legal 1997, or WWE Backlash 2003. 1,400 votes on the poll. Backlash 2003 wins with 71% of the vote. I was really rooting for Uncensored. Maybe we can still do one like that, and I will have a members-only poll up for you guys to choose either our next watch-along and definitely our next members-only watch-along. So don't worry, members. You guys are still going to be making some decisions, but for these Sunday shows, I get pretty good engagement on these polls and stuff, so I kind of want to let those be open to everybody. You guys chose Backlash 2003, which is an interesting card. We have Rock and Goldberg in the main event, and we also have John Cena and Brock Lesnar on this show as well. So it should be an interesting card. When I looked through the Wikipedia card, I'm like, holy crap, this doesn't look too bad. Tomorrow night should be fun. So I did drop a link in the description to tomorrow's watch along. It's also up on my channel. And then I know next month, I usually don't like to do shows right after another that are in the same year, but I've promised all of you guys and myself that this May we would watch Judgment Day 2003, because it's a show I haven't really talked about much before, and I was there. I believe it was in Charlotte. It was either in Charlotte or Greensboro. I don't remember. I think it was Charlotte, and I was in the house for that, and I have some memories of it, and we've never really talked about that show before, and I've never even reviewed it before. And I usually try to review or talk about all the shows I've been to in my life, but never really talked about Judgment Day 03, so we're definitely going to be doing that one in May, but maybe we'll save it until late May, since we're just going to be watching the pay-per-view before that tomorrow night with Backlash. So that's going to be on tap. Most likely, I got to look at my schedule. Most likely, you will probably get me on Monday again. I might hit you guys with 3 days in a row because I've been working a lot during the week, and I'm not sure if Wednesdays are going to be much of a guarantee this summer. So if I'm available Wednesday night, we'll watch Dynamite together. If not, I'll probably be here Monday night after Raw to talk about the latest with WWE, since, if I'm home and I'm here and wrestling is on, I should come up on YouTube and hang out with you guys, because it's one of my only nights to be able to do it. So anyway, that's the plan for this weekend. We'll be here tomorrow for the watch along, and we will probably be here Monday as well. And at the very least, if we're not here Monday, you'll get me Wednesday night, one or the other. So stay tuned, stay subscribed, and make sure you're eyeballing the community tab, Twitter, Instagram, all that stuff for all of your future announcements. Let me say hello to our friends in the chat. I will say hello. I'll do me a favor. While I say hello, you guys do thumbs up buttons. We'll do it together. It'll be a team effort. I want to welcome Stephen Taylor. Let's knock out some channel members first, because you guys are the best. Stephen Taylor, welcome. That's a very, very pretty Bret Hart icon. By the way, emojis, channel icons, membership video, all of that stuff, I'm still working on updating. I got some of it done, but not all of it. Even going to revamp the look of this podcast a little bit. All that's being worked on right now, and should be, noticing some changes here soon. So keep a lookout for new icons, new emojis, all that good stuff. Stephen Taylor, thanks for being here. My friend Zane G, welcome back, buddy. Tata Nani is in the house. So is Chaz Medeiros, and K-Dog's Kennel has been a kayfabe brother for eight months now. Holy shit. It's been an honor to watch you succeed, and even more of an honor to support you. Much love, brother. Thank you very much, K-Dog's Kennel. If you click on his link, you can probably go over to his channel as well. He does some game streaming and all of that. Check out Kevin. He's a great dude. Show him some love over there. Good to see Deshaun Robinson and Ben Espinoza in the house as well. Michael Kumo, I think I might have already gotten you. And Luke McAllister, another channel member, chiming in with a nice $10 drop. What's up, Greg? Hoping to go to All In and already going to Money in the Bank. Can't wait to take my replica spinner belt. Oh, wait, I guess I'm blocked now. Oh, well, can't hate the belt I grew up with. Hey, I've always agreed with that. I shit on the spinner belt because I think the thing's a piece of shit, but I've also acknowledged exactly what you're saying. And I've said over and over and over, whatever the world championship was between the ages of 10 and 20 is probably going to be what your favorite belt is. That's why my favorite is the Winged Eagle. That's why other people's favorite is the O2 Undisputed belt. And that's why some fans have the Spinner belt, because that's what you grew up with and that's what you remember. So I can't block you. I can't give you shit because, hey, if I was of that age group, I might like that belt too. When I was at WrestleMania, when we did our Friday night hangout, there was some fans sitting next to us, and one of them had the replica Spinner. I have never held one of these pieces of garbage before. So everybody that was with us, oh, give it to Greg. Let's take a picture. There's a picture on social media and everything with me with the Spinner belt with the middle part spinning. I look pretty rad. So take that thing to Money in the Bank or All In or both. I think that's awesome that you could possibly go to both, because that's going to be a fun couple of months. Money in the Bank's what, mid-July? Wembley's late August, so you got hopefully 5 or 6 weeks there in between to recharge, and hopefully both shows are fun, exciting, have a lot going on. Fans over there, including you Luke, definitely deserve that. I want to say hi to JJ Leg. Sonic Plays is in the house as well, so is Isaac and Max Pokebruh, another family member of 8 months. Anti-TK losers will hate even with 50K at Wembley. I almost laugh. It's just almost mind-blowingly stupid how much debate, arguing, and discourse is going on about the attendance of a show in 5 fucking months. I mean, they're not even on sale yet, and everybody's already starting to plant their feet and get themselves ready to be on whatever side of the argument they're going to be on. And so the people that insist on making Wembley a failure no matter what, those are the ones that you're going to hear start coming out now and saying, well, if AEW is so great, they need to sell out. I'm like, you're so fucking transparent. You're obviously saying this. That way, when they don't draw 90, you can consider it a failure, because that's how empty, weak, and pathetic and insecure you are. Not you, Max, but people who say these things. So it's really silly and transparent, and so dumb. The chatter, I'm like, can we just let the fucking show happen? I think you have to be a jaded moron to think that this company is going to draw 15,000 people or 20,000 people. They're going to draw way more than that. I think the minimum they're going to do is 50K, and they're probably going to do more than that. And regardless of what they do, it's so obvious what the arguments are going to be. It does not matter what kind of number they draw, Max. If they draw great, if they draw 25,000 or 65,000, the people who hate them will find a way to find the negative in either one of those numbers. It does not matter. So that's just the way fans are. That's the way they think. And I think it's pretty awesome that a company that's only going to be 4 years old this October is already running a show that could potentially have as many as 90,000 people in it. Do I think they're going to draw 90,000? I don't know, man. I've never even been to the UK. So I know that there's great fans over there. You guys always turn out whenever there's a WWE show, pay-per-view, Raw, SmackDown, whatever. Even just those England-only pay-per-views would turn out huge numbers. So the numbers are there just in the statistics, in the history. Wrestling fans exist over there, a shit ton of them. And I fully believe they are going to turn out for a show. Now, if you did this, in where the Kansas City Chiefs play football right here in the dead center of the United States, I don't think you're drawing any more than 25,000 for that show, to be honest. But over there, completely different story. And I fully expect a big house, a massive house. But the funny thing is, it just doesn't matter. I'm going to be looking at it from a company perspective with no bias. You know, if AEW could do 50K or better, I'm like, good for them. They're a company that's a fraction of the size of WWE, drawing 50,000 people for a show. To look at that as anything other than a success, is to be willfully blind. And I think that they're going to do a big house, and it should be something that the company can look at and say, wow, look at what we did. We all did that together, something to be proud of, maybe something that could, turn the table on some of the upside down morale that we've got in the company. And with, many of them being anti-punk, some of them being pro-punk, some of the issues and turmoil going on behind the scenes, a show like this can kind of really pull everybody together and get them on the same page and be like, oh shit, look at the money we're capable of making. Maybe it's in our best interest to all get along here because look at what we just did. So Wembley's going to be fun. I'm excited, and I'm still excited to see if they're going to do All Out. The plan, right, is All Out is usually Labor Day weekend. That'll be a week after that. I don't know how you can run Chicago for what has been, I think, like your biggest pay-per-view to date in All Out 1 week after you do a stadium show. I don't know how that's going to work with that Discovery Plus and HBO merger to form Max that's going to be rolled out, I think, in May. There's been some talk about that Wembley show streaming on Max because they haven't announced this as a pay-per-view, I don't believe, yet, but tickets aren't even on sale yet. So all that can still be announced, but I wouldn't be surprised if maybe AEW can work out a streaming deal with this, with Max, since they're already kind of owned by, or they're on Warner Brothers anyway. That would be really awesome if that could be like the first show that launches their streaming on that app. We'll see. A lot of questions to still be answered, but I'm really curious to see how how this is gonna happen, how it's gonna play into the CM Punk return, what kind of card they're gonna build for this, and how many extra attractions or bells and whistles they're gonna put on All In to make it attractive enough for 50 to 80,000 people to come in that stadium. I'm excited. Interesting choice of words, but you know what I mean. I'm curious to see how it's all going to go, and I'm excited because that's what wrestling is all about, being excited. Zach Palgett, good to see you as well. The Juliet is in the house. So is Ian Dunn. Who else do we have on the channel member side of things? I think that is about it. Nicole Lensing. Shout out to Nicole Lensing, who was gifted 5 Good Mic Work Commentaries memberships. That's incredible, Nicole. She is gifted Jay Lambo, Talee Times, MH Nova, Alex Bryant, and Elizabeth. Elizabeth is here, my fiance. That's either really her or it is an imposter, but I believe it's her. You just got a free membership, babe. That's pretty crazy because I don't make Elizabeth pay for memberships. She gets her own membership, you know what I'm saying? I'm kidding. We Are Pro Wrestling. Good to see you, my friend. Tomorrow, Backlash 2003. I expect you to be here to answer my trivia questions because I'm going to have some. Super J Cena, also good to see you. Shell Shock is in the house. WWE fan. Stephen Harris is here as well. JJ Leg, I think I got you. I want to shout out as well. Jordan Smith, thank you so much for that $2. Sammy KO, don't do shoddy shows. They will lose the belts. I find it interesting that you think they have to lose the belts because they don't do Saudi shows. How about just don't have them on the show? You got a King of the Ring tournament. You have a Queen of the Ring tournament. You can easily afford to not have a tag team title match on that show. Now, you might have a point if this was a more of a full card show, because you got to remember 80% of this card is going to be the tournaments. So you don't need much else on there. Now, if this is a full card, you would expect a tag team title match to be on there. You might have a point, Jordan, but with the King and Queen of the Ring tournament being on Night of Champions, I see no reason that they would have to drop the belts. None whatsoever. You might be right that they could drop them, but what are they going to do? Drop them back to the Usos after the run they had right after winning at WrestleMania? I don't think dropping the belts is an absolute certainty. Jordan Smith, hate to disagree with you. I just don't see that as a absolute done deal. Resident Evil, good to see you. Zach, my boy, we got a couple people that I met up with at WrestleMania in the chat here. That's good to see you, man. Go check out Zach's channel if you can access it from his icon. I think you can. Him and Thomas have got a big WrestleMania recap on their channel right now, which I saw just the other day. He even commented on. Richard Fielding, good to see you as well. That should do it for the shout-outs. I've been doing a lot of rambling. We need to get into some business here. Let's also shout out all of the current channel members. Of course, I might have to give this a refresh now because we've had a lot of gifts. These might not reflect the ones that were gifted, but I do want to thank, first of all, Nicole Lensing. You are the best. Thank you so much for donating and gifting those 5 memberships to other listeners. That's why our family is the best. Also want to shout out Vash Starwind, my friend James Williams. Good to see you as well. They both were gifted memberships recently. Sonic Plays as well as in the house, as well as being a channel member. Leo Whalen, Super Fluffy Toaster, Chaz Medeiros, Sam Piboon, Chris Ludek, Stephen Taylor, Anthony Matisse, Ben Espinoza, Queasy, Deshaun Robinson, Motown Slim, Ramon Coffee, Ian Dunn, Big Mike ATP, Jennifer, Mike, Ken Webb, Titanium Titan, Josiah Blevins, Max, Kevin, Ruben Litton, Foxstar Killer, The Juliet, Brandon Collier. We have Alan Carter, Zach Palgett, Dre, Sean 2018, Jordan Carg, Financial Truth Academy, Devlin Husband, Michael Tong, Longboard, Jeff McMahon, Mikey Too Cool, Tar Brehan, Luke McAllister, Zelius Ward, William, Bo Kavalovic, Al Ramos Pro, Zach H., Chris Miner, Mike Witt, Jimmy Anderson, C-Mac, Mab, Joshua Aparicio, Casey, How Easy, Spaz Phoenix, Ronnie, Nicole Lensing, Marcus the Entertainer, Nikita Abalakin, Divine Rick, Zane G, Chris Barrera, Michael Kumo, John J.E. Dennett, Tatanani, Nick Musser, K-Dogs, Kennel, Max Pokebrush, Spectra, Reese Jones, Victor Cologne, Isaac, George Morris, Population 420, and the OG, JJ Leg. Thank you guys as always. We are so close to 100 members. Just need a few more, and we will finally reach that milestone 8 months into doing memberships. Not too shabby. Also, Patreon supporters. I have been posting reactions and live reactions over there. It's been dead for a couple of weeks because of WrestleMania, but I got so much footage that I can edit and upload and throw up there. So keep a lookout on Patreon. Lots of exclusive stuff. And you might even get some Greg and Elizabeth Patreon exclusives. We've been trying to talk about a way for her and I to do a live reaction together, but that might be exclusive to Patreon. We're not sure how we're going to work that out, if we're going to do it live, if we're going to film it. But you might see her for either members-only content or Patreon-only content very, very soon. So keep a lookout. And I want to thank the current patrons right now: Kenny Ward, Anthony Del Petra, Paul Carpenter, William Joseph Hudson, Chris Broski, Divine Ricks, Ryan, Nikita Abalakin, Chris Miner, Alan Carter, Super Fluffy Toaster, Brandon Yelverton, my boy. There you are. I want to shout out you again. Met you at WrestleMania weekend. Tried to email you to get the picture that we took to include it in the review, but I never heard back. But I might even have the email wrong, and I don't know how to find you on social media. So if you're listening, drop a hello in the chat right now and let me know if you are anywhere else where I can find you, because we loved talking to you. Nick Musser, K-Dogs Kennel, Ryan Y, John Redifer, Claudio Klaviditcher, Daniel Rodriguez, Reese Jones, John Riffle, Michael Kumo, Naveed, and Blake Moran. As always, thank you so much, guys, for your support. Many of you support on both platforms, and that's just pretty much unbelievable. Just awesome. Thank you so much for your continued support and helping the ball roll on this channel. I couldn't be doing this without you. Wouldn't be able to afford it. So thank you very much, as you guys are always unbelievable. So anyway, I think that should take care of all of the shout-outs, all of the super chats, all of the early comments that we've gotten, and what you guys can expect from me this weekend. Oh, FRGN, good to see you as well. Go find his channel. I've been a guest over there before, way over Singapore, right? Thank you for staying up early or late or whatever the hell time it is over there to watch me. Good to see you, my friend. And Denny Downbad, Jet the Hawk, anybody else who is chiming in here late, Blair Hathaway, Red Raven Rucker, JL, Paul Sherrick, good to see you as well. Everybody else that's joining the chat right now, welcome. We are 27 minutes into the stream, and we better start talking about stuff. Let's talk about our buddy, Phil Brooks, CM Punk. It feels like every week there's something new about this. First, it feels like he's coming back. Then, oh, no, he's not. Then he is. Then he's not. I've maintained from the start, ever since the day after Brawl Out, when all of that stuff happened, I said, I just don't see a universe where you can keep CM Punk around after what just happened. There's got to be a big, long break, or you got to bring people back together, or there's a lot of obstacles in your way to smoothing this over. And I felt like Tony Khan was up Schitt's Creek. He really was, because this was his champion. This was his top star. The injury almost seemed like a blessing in disguise, didn't it? CM Punk getting injured, because even if Brawl Out wouldn't have happened, the next night on Dynamite, he was going to have to forfeit the title anyway. We talked about a potential what-if segment that I want to start on this channel as soon as I can put it together and find time. And I think a lot of fun topics would be, what if this happened? How would it affect wrestling? And think about if CM Punk didn't get injured at All Out, or if the Brawl never happened. Like, what if Brawl Out never happened? Then on Wednesday, we would have seen CM Punk forfeit the title again in another tearful promo, and we would all be questioning his future. He's injury prone. Boy, the guy's won the title twice and then got injured and dropped it. You know, there would be a lot of criticisms on CM Punk if he's strong and durable enough to handle being a world champion in the company. And there's a lot of people, I think, that would have questioned that. Now, Punk getting injured and the fight and all of that drama completely overshadowed that fact. But had Punk not began that locker room brawl, and set things in motion that led to that, it would have been interesting to see, now that he's, assumingly healed from his injury, how he would come back now into AEW after dropping and forfeiting the title twice. So that would all be really interesting. So I've maintained ever since the get-go that based on Punk's behavior, and then I've said right from the start, it doesn't matter who you think started it or what you think happened. None of that matters. Well, Hangman Page started it by going into business for himself. Stop repeating shit you hear. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. None of those guys, the Elite, the Bucks, Matt, Kenny, Nick, Hangman, none of them did what CM Punk did. And what CM Punk did trumps everything to go on a profanity-laced, unprofessional tirade like that right in front of your boss, the man who's paying you, and to run down all these executives that are all part of this team. It doesn't matter what Punk thinks happened or how Punk feels like this behavior is justified. It's not. It's just simply not. There's a million different better ways Punk could have gone about this if he really felt he was done wrong. Obviously, all these guys have issues with each other. The Bucks, Kenny, and Hangman, I'm sure, are not completely innocent in this either. But like I said, it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. What Punk did was worse, period. And so that needed to be dealt with. And Tony Khan suspended everybody that was involved after that. You know, the Elite wound up coming back. Punk stayed on the shelf while things behind the scenes have been, I guess, getting worked out. At least that's what the fans thought. And if you think back to like even late last year, there was a lot of people, a lot of chatter from folks who fully believe that Punk is going to come back. Lots of little hints. They're finally starting to mention him in commentary a little bit. Dax, or as I like to call him, Chatty Cathy, has been very, very vocal about everything on his podcast. He's almost been used somewhat as like a vessel for CM Punk to get some of these narratives out there. You know, and now you have a lot of fans and, more importantly, a lot of wrestlers choosing sides here. Oh, well, now Sean Ross Sapp is a mouthpiece for Punk. Like I saw that today, like these idiotic comments from people who just say anything that don't even know what the fuck they're talking about. But there's a lot of sides being taken. And normally I would criticize the fans for that, but hell, the wrestlers are just as bad. Deadspin put up an article, a very bad one yesterday, about CM Punk gaslighting AEW. And I'm like, oh, fuck me. As if I didn't hate the word gaslighting enough. Now you're going to have a bunch of idiot fans repeating it over and over and over because they saw it in a headline. And that's exactly what we saw. I read the article. It's got a clear bias against Punk. I believe that what Punk did was wrong, and I believe Punk had to go, but I'm not biased against him. I want everything to work out for the best for wrestling, for AEW, for Tony Khan, for the wrestlers in the locker room, and for us. That's all I give a shit about. I'm not interested in proving anybody right or wrong, or, you know, getting in some stupid argument or debate or feud with some dipshit fan online. Not my priority. What I want is for CM Punk to either come back and help the business or stay gone forever. Whatever they do, whatever decision is made, I hope it makes the business better, not worse. And prior to Brawl Out, we heard nothing but good, positive things about locker room morale in AEW. Now, that might have not been the case. There still were some issues. We've seen issues with Big Swole and, you know, maybe Brian Cage and Miro and some other talent in AEW who have experienced frustrations and issues, but they weren't really getting a whole lot of publicity from what we understood. Everybody got along in AEW. Maybe that wasn't the case, and that wasn't totally true, and the CM Punk stuff just amplified that. But now, when you see that Deadspin article, it was Brandon Cutler just a few minutes after it was posted that quote tweeted the article and said, "Someone gets it." Well, we know where Brandon Cutler stands, and that makes sense because he is legitimate real life friends with the Elite, and he probably was nearby or involved somewhat in that nonsense that went on, and probably has a pretty clear take on what happened and how he feels on it. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if a wrestler like Brandon Cutler does not like CM Punk. He deleted that tweet pretty quickly because then fans are like, oh, this guy who's never drawn a dime is criticizing CM Punk. I think a janitor has the right to criticize CM Punk. What does that have to do with it? You know, you still have a working, functioning human brain inside of a skull. It doesn't matter what your job is. You know, so, oh, what, Brandon Cutler is disqualified for having an opinion about this because he didn't draw anybody like CM Punk did? What if Brandon Cutler is just sitting there observing? He has every right to make a you know, have his feelings on this or pick whatever side he wants to pick based on, you know, what he saw and what he experienced. And that goes for every wrestler. And that goes for a janitor that might have been standing right there nearby the locker room door when all this shit was going down. Leroy, the janitor, watches all this one. Goddamn, that fucking Punk needs to be fired. Leroy has every right to make that determination if that's the way he views it. So I don't have any problem with wrestlers picking sides here. I get that. What I hate is that these sides are being picked publicly And you're starting to now know who's on what side. Now, again, you could always look at it as, oh, they might just be feeding into this. There could be some sort of a understanding or agreement already with Punk and the Elite. We can just, might as well just make the most of this and really lean into it and make the fans think we really hate each other. That way, when I come back, it's going to be even a bigger deal. But as I'm going to read here in a second, an article from Fightful Select earlier this week, there still are apparently a lot of things to work out, including potential meetings with other members of talent. And at least according to this report, it doesn't look like, from what they've told anybody at Fightful or, any of the other, journalists out there, they have not been told that anything is officially worked out. But you've heard a lot of possible things that could happen and could take place once the return is imminent. So if people are of the belief that a Punk return is imminent, that means something must have been worked out between him and Tony Khan. Punk and Khan, I'm sure, have been remaining in some sort of contact during this time, trying to figure out how to work it out, if it can be worked out. And like I said months ago, I made the crazy comparison, the movie Apollo 13, I think, because I just watched it or something. And, they had a catastrophic event take place on the way to the moon, but they were able to come back and bring home everybody safely, and you could look at it two ways. You could look at it as NASA's, biggest failure or their greatest victory. It could be looked at two ways. And so when that catastrophe took place, when Tony Khan looked like an inept, incapable boss, letting a wrestler talk about the company, the EVPs, and just be completely out of control, and to feel justified enough as a wrestler that you can do that in front of your fucking boss, still blows my mind. I don't care how big of a star you are. And the fact that Tony Khan allowed that to happen and then continued the scrum while all hell is breaking loose backstage, and it's just complete chaos. The next day, everybody's stripped of their titles. Everybody is suspended. This is right after a pay-per-view that should have been great and should have been remembered as one of your better pay-per-views. Instead, is completely overshadowed by this behind-the-scenes drama. None of the fans even gave a shit about the results of the pay-per-view. It was all about, oh my God, did you hear about what happened to CM Punk and the Elite? And so for Tony Khan to allow all that to happen, I said, that might be the learning experience of all learning experiences for him, because that might force him to, like I said, put his big boy pants on, be a little bit more of a boss, and really start taking control of things that he might not have full control over. So I said, if he is able to take all of these very combustible elements, these terrible personalities, Punk is just very, very abrasive and always just angry and distrusting of everybody, everywhere, all the time. That's a tough person to get to work with, I would assume, because we all know people like that, people that are just really intense and just always come off as angry or victimized in some way. We all know people like this. I said last night on Twitter, I said, I'm all for and I support anybody's decision to be straight edge, but I don't think partaking in the green gimmick would really hurt CM Punk's personality, maybe it would just chill him the F out a little bit more, and the same goes with the Elite. If Tony Khan can take all of these guys that cannot stand each other to the point where they were throwing hands, and he can actually facilitate a compromise, an apology, whatever Punk needs to do, Punk, everybody has to apologize, obviously, but the one who needs to make the biggest and loudest apology is CM Punk. Whether CM Punk believes he's right or wrong or not, this situation goes nowhere without a CM Punk apology. If Tony Khan thinks he can bring CM Punk back with CM Punk continuing to have his same feelings and then all just put him on separate shows, that is a recipe for disaster. And I would not even think about bringing Punk back to TV at all unless you can get as many people either on the same page with it or accepting of it. You're going to have talent not going to like it. But, Tony Khan is also the boss. And I think it's about time that say, hey, you know what? This is the way we do things now. And I wouldn't hesitate at all if I was Tony Khan to fucking lay down the law with these guys, because I think some of this stuff could really get out of hand. And when I'm going to read what it says here in the Fightful Select article, that was concerning. So here's what Fightful Select posted, I believe, on Thursday. Really good write-up here by Sean. And it's regarding CM Punk's tentative return to AEW. And I quote, CM Punk has expressed his willingness to return to AEW, and it seems like the pieces are being put in place for that to happen. So we'll do a quick pause there because that has been one thing that CM Punk has been adamant about in his cryptic social media posts. It does sound like he wants to come back. We've seen a lot of back and forth on social media where it felt like, oh, CM Punk's definitely coming back, to where then everything feels like it took, 10 steps backwards and he's further away from returning than ever before. So now we're back at it again. More reports of his return. And according to the article here, there are plans in place now for that to happen. It goes on to say, and I quote, "We will preface and follow this with the disclaimer that nothing is set in stone and things can change, as this is often a tumultuous situation." So that's all you got to read right there. A lot of fans who get so uppity, about wrestling news and journalists and pretend to care about accuracy when they don't, because they're inaccurate in what they are saying and what they are thinking is being reported. So basically what I see, Fightful, anybody at Fightful, Sean or whoever could say, from those we talked to, they believe this is happening. Then the fans will say, Sean Ross Sapp reported that CM Punk is coming back and then he didn't. I'm like, that's not what it said. All they're doing is writing down in front of you what they are hearing from various sources with no confirmation, nothing confirmed, nothing is set in stone, anything can change. These are some of the information and some of the tidbits of information we are getting from our sources inside the company. This is what they're telling us. None of this is ever confirmed, ever. We're not reporting it as fact. We're reporting it as this is what we heard. And for some reason, that gets a boat oar up the ass of wrestling fans, and they go all schizo on wrestling journalists and all pissed off. Now, I know Meltzer can have his problems and be fucking annoying, and so can Alvarez and a lot of them, but I like those guys. I've met them all. I've met Sean, I've met Alvarez, I've met Meltzer. They're great. But sure, they can rub fans the wrong way in certain situations, especially someone like Meltzer, who's been doing it forever and has been seen with countless amounts of inaccuracies and editorializing a lot throughout his career, and he gets shit on for it. But I don't concern myself with that. I've read the newsletter, the Observer, for years. I've read it and taken it for what it is. I've never once gotten my panties in a bunch about it ever. And the same goes for Sean and any of those guys. So when I read a simple sentence like that, I don't understand why it's impossible for fans to not be able to take words, put them together, and group them to form a sentence. That's all you have to do is read it. And nothing, and anything that I've ever seen them attacked for in terms of false reporting wasn't reported. It wasn't. And so, you guys are so inaccurate. I'm like, no, you're inaccurate. You can't read. So stop bitching. Learn to read or shut up. It's really that simple. So there's my little Fightful Select defense there. By the way, I don't pay them $5 a month. I pay them 10 because I support what they do, and they do good work over there. Anyway, let's continue. Fightful Select had been getting hints after April 12th's report that Punk wanted to come back to AEW, that the wheels were already in motion. We were told shortly before the announcement of Chicago at Wintrust that the June 21st episode of Dynamite would be interesting. So that's June 21st. That's coming up in about 2 months from now. It's a Chicago show, not at the United Center. What we've learned since then is, as of April 13th, happy birthday to my late father, the working plan has been for CM Punk to return at that show, or at the very least around it. There were also pitches of announcing it well ahead of time, even around the Warner upfronts, which are around May 17th. So that's just a month away. Those that we've spoken to confirmed that CM Punk has been hoping to work with Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks, but we've heard of no contact at all between the two sides. The last we'd heard, the Elite were not keen on the possibility of working with him. AEW sources indicated that Punk had been trying to push for a meeting between everyone for quite a while, but we haven't heard if any progress on that had been made. It's worth noting that the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega are in the middle of negotiating new contracts with AEW, so that is kind of interesting there too. And with Tony Khan, you have to wonder, I don't know what his business tactics are, how he approaches things, but the Young Bucks and Kenny, their contracts are coming up. WWE, some in the company feel like there's a hiring freeze, and then others say there isn't one, but they haven't brought anybody in basically all year in the WWE. So it might not be that attractive of a place to maybe get a better deal. And as we speculated on in the last podcast, I said, in theory now, I could be wrong about this, but in theory, I would think that Tony Khan is probably going to find himself in a better position to outbid WWE in the future with upcoming stars. I still feel like there's some people in WWE that WWE will pay anything to, but with some of the other talent, Tony Khan, where WWE's got the umbrella of Endeavor to worry about, maybe, some cap space they might have to deal with, who knows? Tony Khan just has his own fucking brain. So if he wants to spend it, he can spend it, and he might find himself in a position to pony up more money than WWE with certain free agents. So right now, I feel like we'll talk about with Drew McIntyre later. It's probably a good idea to wait as long as you can to see how WWE offers contracts once that sale is completed, which could still be 6 months away. So with Kenny and the Young Bucks, if they feel a better deal could be had in WWE, they could maybe re-up right now with AEW, and maybe a little incentive in those re-ups. Hey, I'm going to bring Punk back. You guys might not like it. Here's an extra $200,000 on your contract. Sorry. Who knows? Maybe he threw a little incentive at him, gave him a little bonus. We're going to bring him back. It's going to suck, but you motherfuckers are all millionaires. You need to learn to work together. This is ridiculous. It's not middle school. You're all professionals. And that's what I'll talk about here later with Khan, maybe needing to keep them big boy britches on. The Fightful Select article goes on to say, we are also told that there was a meeting planned between CM Punk and Chris Jericho, who have had numerous issues in the past, to see if the two working together is a possibility. I've always known these two don't like each other. There's been a lot more traction within Warner Brothers Discovery about an impending announcement of a primetime Saturday show being designed for a bit of a soft roster split to accommodate the preferences of talent who wanted to stay separate of the particular situations, though talent haven't been informed of that. So that's just an idea floating around. Nobody's reporting that as anything other than hearsay. Talent we've spoke to have heard the discussions about the new show, but haven't heard about Punk's possible impending return. As with anything, things can change, but specifically in this situation, that has been brewing for the better part of a year. Thus far, none of this has been set in stone. So they said 9 fucking times in that article that nothing is set in stone, but fans will still complain and say that it was. So one thing that sticks out more than anything in this entire report is that Saturday show shit. Now, this seems, I don't know where this came from, but to reread this paragraph, it says there's been a lot more traction within Warner Brothers Discovery about an impending announcement of a primetime Saturday show being designed for a bit of a soft roster split to accommodate the preferences of talent who want to stay separate from particular situations. That is bullshit. There is no way they can do that. And I'm saying right now, I'm not usually adamant about anything, but that is a bad idea. If AEW wants to split their rosters, fine, but don't do it because of CM Punk or because your roster can't get along. So you'll put people who can get along on one show and the people who they don't like on another show. That's ridiculous. That is ridiculous. That is no way to run a company. And if you do split the rosters, what the hell is the point of Ring of Honor then? So do not split the rosters. Don't make it a soft roster split. You could have talent being featured more on one show than another. I could see that. We see that with Rampage all the time. I see much more of Jade Cargill on Rampage than I do on Dynamite, but she does work both. So if, at the very worst, do that, but doing a roster split to keep the Elite and Punk separate, that's crazy. I hope that's nothing more than hearsay, and I really can't imagine that being a real thing, because that, I've been a defender of Tony Khan for a long time. I think he gets a lot of unneeded, unwanted hate because fans are just assholes. And Matt Kuhn, shout out to Matt Kuhn, he put it best the other day on Twitter. He said, unsuccessful people who have given up in life are always going to hate successful people. And that's why you see so much hate to these online personalities like the Sean Ross Sapps and the Denise Salcedos and all these people who work hard and succeed, people who sit on their ass on the recliner with a thumb up their butt and potato chips all over their face. They're angry about that, and they act like dicks online. It's an exact science. It's really the way it is. And I think with Tony Khan, he gets a lot of that same anger and hate from fans who just fucking hate to hate. And sometimes I'm like, bitch, what do you do to sit here and spend so much and expend so much energy letting everybody else know why Tony Khan is an inept, inferior businessman and booker? What do you do? What's your level of education? Where do you work? I thought so. Shut up. So when all of this hate is thrown on him, I'm usually the one to say, oh, come on, don't be stupid. You guys are all being haters. But even I will acknowledge when Tony Khan needs to man the F up. And if this has even been talked about, this needs to be squashed immediately, because Tony Khan needs to call a talent meeting and say, look, motherfuckers, here's the way it is. I'm paying all you pieces of shit, a lot of you 6 figures, some of you 7, all of you in this room, a minimum of 5. I pay all of you a lot of money. You know why? Because you're professionals. You're professional wrestlers. It is your job to have camaraderie and to get along and to respect each other and to be professionals. That's what a professional wrestler is. It's right there in the first damn word, professional. Be a professional. Sure, you're going to have problems. You're going to have arguments. You're going to have disagreements. You might even have some scuffles from time to time. Every single locker room in the history of locker rooms has had that. But what you can't let happen is let your morale and your team aspect of it crumble so badly that it affects the product that you're putting out on TV, because nobody wants to do anything. You saw some years in WCW where it felt like that. You had a lot of wrestlers in the ring literally going through the motions. Watch some of those Nitro matches. They'll just throw Barbarian and Meng out there for no reason. What's the incentive for those guys to go out there for 4 minutes and try to do anything crazy? They're just going to just do a little exhibition and get the hell out of the ring. I mean, that's all they were doing. And it's because nobody cared. They were using it for a paycheck. Tony Khan does not want to make AEW the company where you go just to get a paycheck. You actually want to go out there and do good work and produce good TV and make sure that you keep bringing the fans in so everybody else makes more money. And when you have talent that don't have that vision, and you would think that most professional wrestling talent should, they should be able to put personal issues aside of everything, when it comes to the business. Personal stuff can be worked out on the side or whatever, but it should never be worked out after a pay-per-view where it affects the TV, where you now have guys stripped and suspended and all of that. And I think Tony Khan might have to call a meeting and yell at these people. And just yell at them, scare them. I guess Tony Khan, when he yells, he's not really that scary. He's more funny. Whenever Tony Khan's not the best promo cutter, I'll give him that. He's definitely not Vince when it comes to being on camera, but he really shouldn't have to be. Wrestling promoters, don't need to be out there. They don't need to be characters. But whenever Tony Khan is on TV and he makes some sort of announcement, he's kind of scary, but not in a scary, like I'm frightened of him way, just like it was scary as I didn't know a human being could make those noises type of way. But if I'm Tony Khan, I am laying down the law to these boys and girls and say, enough of this bullshit. We should be proud of what we've accomplished. We're only 4 years old and we're, pulling in half the ratings of the big bad 60-year-old WWE. We are a legitimate competitor to them and a legitimate job option now for everybody in pro wrestling. Every single star in pro wrestling can now think about coming to us if they so choose. Everybody. There's been rumors of Edge turning up in AEW to work something with Christian if he so chooses. So who knows what the future holds for AEW, but what's not going to help them is if they can't have a locker room that gets along. And if we start hearing 10 years from now, books being written by some of these legends, the Jericho book and the Moxley book detailing what a clusterfuck it truly was back in those days, we're going to wonder how AEW even managed to have success at all. So that's why I think Tony Khan just needs to take the reins here and really try to right this ship with his locker room. And if he's about to bring back CM Punk, a guy that can cause a lot of controversy in your locker room, you have to make sure that people understand this is the decision I'm making. Remember after the screw job where Vince insisted that everybody thought it was him? I don't want people thinking Sean was in on it or anything like that. If Brett wants to hit anybody, he can just hit me. And that's what Tony Khan needs to say. I'm bringing CM Punk back. It's not the Elite's decision. It's not Chris Jericho's decision. It's not CM Punk's decision, not FTR's decision. I have decided this. You got a problem with it? Come talk to me. I am the person to blame. Don't fight amongst yourselves. Don't get mad. If you have any problem with this guy being in this locker room, then you can come talk to me and we'll talk about a release. But this is the way it's going to be. Have a nice fucking day. And slam the goddamn door and walk out. It's what I would do. So, you've got a chance here to take this catastrophe that took place last September that could have been seen as a death blow to the company, considering what it did and the controversy it created, and to be able to wait a year, come out of it, get everybody back together as a boss, get everybody as much on the same page as they can be. CM Punk comes back. He's healthy. Locker room is happy. Nobody's stepping on each other's toes or dicks or anything like that. and everything's all hunky-dory, and then you have a kick-ass summer, your dynamites are on fire, hitting on all cylinders, forbidden doors to success, you pack 68,500 people into Wembley Stadium with a great CM Punk FTR versus Kenny and the Bucks main event with Hangman Page as a special referee. And then you get to the 1 year mark of Brawl Out, and what a difference a year makes. 1 year before, everybody's fighting in the locker room, and AEW is probably in the most turmoil they've ever been. 365 days later, they come full circle and turn it into gold. That would be your best case scenario for AEW. Is that going to happen? I don't know. I don't know. I hope it does. I'm a wrestling fan. Of course I hope it does. The hope that they fail is to be a dick. And I'm not a dick, and neither are you guys. So I'm rooting for AEW's success here, but meetings between Jericho and Punk being scheduled, they don't like each other, and they never have. I'm convinced they never have anyway. Maybe they were professional enough on TV, but it just felt like, because Jericho and Punk worked in 2012 at WrestleMania. And I know Punk threw some shade at him on the Cabana podcast for trying to get him on his podcast. Oh, he just wants to get me on there to get ratings or number, whatever. Punk's just always super distrusting, and look at what happened with him and Cole Cabana. Even they had a big falling out. So Punk is just an interesting personality and an interesting person to put into your locker room. But at the end of the day, he does move that needle a little bit for AEW. He's not going to quadruple the ratings or anything, but he does bring buzz, he does bring ratings, and he does bring interest to the company. And if you're going to squeeze any more years out of CM Punk, he's 44 years old or whatever he is, you better do it now. The dude was never the best worker, even in his prime. And now I'm not really sure, how much he can offer, since his two previous runs there have ended in injuries. So we will see. I want to see CM Punk back. I think it would be a terrible way for CM Punk to end his professional wrestling careers, for it to end like that. It would seem almost appropriate, given his nature and his reputation, for it to end in some big catastrophic brawl. But if he can come back and get back, then maybe he can turn this still into a happy ending and not a bad one. So we'll see. That's the latest with CM Punk. Just wanted to dissect all of that, since it's been a while since we've really looked at that situation. Let me just cruise here before we get into our next topic here and knock out anything else I need to mention. I want to say hello to Leo Whalen, member for 1 month. Thanks for chiming in, my friend. Thanks as well, JJ Leg. If they can work it out, Punk FTR versus the Elite, blood and guts. Well, I feel like the Elite, I don't even know if you need blood and guts for that, to be honest. I feel like the Elite and blood and guts will be with Blackpool, and Punk and FTR versus the Elite can just be a match. I mean, it can be a no disqualification or something like that, but I don't know if you necessarily need to put them right in a cage right off the bat. I think there's enough there just for those guys that, in turn, that stare down in the middle of the ring before the bell rings is all I need. That'll be a moment. Maybe blood and guts for a blow off or something, but if you just put Punk and FTR versus the Elite as the main event of that Wembley show, I think that might draw some interest, especially if Punk's not on TV much. Like if he comes back in June and he's on TV every week leading up to All In, then it might not be a big deal. But if you maybe wait or postpone or time CM Punk's return later in the summer, or if he comes back and then stays gone until Wembley, like they could do an angle where he slides, they make it look like he's coming in uninvited, comes through the crowd, slides under the ring, grabs a hold to Kenny, starts choking him out until security comes and rips him off, and then he runs through the crowd again. And then on Dynamite, they challenge Punk, come on back or whatever, and they set the big match up for Wembley, something like that. But I think that match can just be a tag title match, and that's all you need. That's all you need. Yeah, Doug. I mean, yeah, Punk is his personal life and his history has been well documented with the things that went on with his family and, all the distrust. Those seeds were sown in him so early in life that that's just his nature, is to be distrusting. But you're going to have to get over that, because this is professional wrestling and there's too much money involved to be an asshole. But speaking of that new AEW show that was mentioned, like I said, I think that soft brand split shit is a terrible idea, and I'm adamantly against that. But apparently it's going to be called AEW Collision. It's going to run on Saturday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. and has got a potential start date, according to Andrew Zarian, of June 17th in Chicago. So that could be where that show debuts. That right there could be your return date for CM Punk, unless, like I said, they wanted to wait a little longer. So now they're going to have a 2-hour show. This is a much better time slot than the wishy-washy one they have on Friday nights. Now, it's going to be on TNT, and I know TNT runs a lot of NBA games. NBA wreaks havoc on Rampage time slots. I'm not sure how it will affect the Saturday night ones. Hopefully, with the Saturday show, it doesn't turn into Rampage. A lot of people are saying, well, what about Rampage now? I don't even watch Rampage, to be honest, as it is now, so I don't really care what happens to Rampage. It feels like it's already a lost show. I feel like they started out great, but it was a 1-hour show. Time slot wasn't great. It gets moved around a lot. And if they had something a little bit more consistent, something a little bit longer that they could treat as an equal to Dynamite, that's probably a much better option than a secondary, obvious B show that's at a whack-ass time slot. So you could cancel Rampage for all I care, or turn it into some other type of show, or maybe move the All Access to that slot or something and keep Dynamite back to 2 hours. Not sure, but if AEW can create this collision show and it's consistent and they don't get preempted all the time and they're not changing time slots, obviously you're going to have to do that a couple times a year. But if it's not a super frequent thing and they can actually treat it like you treat Dynamite, then this could be good. You know, this gives you now 4 hours instead of just the 2 hours plus the 1 hour of B show. This should create a lot more TV time. And I know, you know, oversaturating the market isn't good, but one of AEW's biggest critiques is not enough TV time for wrestlers. Sometimes we see guys absent for weeks at a time and we don't know why. And sometimes there is no logical explanation for that. Other times it's just because the TV time isn't there. So if they now have another show, a lot of the talent that seems to have stop and start issues, maybe those can be hammered out a little bit better. Tony Khan, I don't know. I know he's the head of creative there. I don't know how many creative people he has around him. I know he's, you know, in charge of creative, but I would assume he's got people there to at least talk to, bounce ideas off of, or get ideas from. I still think Tony Khan needs to get himself a creative team. He could still be the center of it. I have no problem with Tony Khan being the head of creative. No problem at all. But I do think he should have a team of guys around him that aren't yes men, that can be honest with him. That's kind of what I would hope he has behind the scenes in the system there. And if he doesn't yet, hopefully he gets that in coming years, especially when people like Chris Jericho leave the ring. I kind of feel like, and I kind of hope also, I have a love-hate relationship with Jericho. I like him and don't like him all at the same time. But if you were going to have a Triple H-like wrestler turned executive in AEW, I think Jericho could be a good option for that because of how much history he has in wrestling and his knowledge. You might not like some of the people he donates to politically, which I don't, but I also think that he's been in the business enough to where, and he does seem to have AEW's back in a lot of things, to where he would probably be able to have a position there with the best interests of the company at heart. You know? Does that make any sense? And who knows? Maybe he could, have a Triple H-like role and one day buy the company from Tony Khan. Who knows? That's way in the future. But if they are able to get everything together behind the scenes enough to where you can have a Saturday show that's just as good quality-wise as Dynamite, then I think this could be a good move for AEW. They just have to be careful not to let this show slide. And if it starts sliding, because the ratings will not be what Dynamite is, I don't think they're going to be as bad as Rampage, but they're not going to be pulling Dynamite numbers, I would not think, at least not at first. So they're probably going to be somewhere in that 500,000 mark, probably, which isn't going to be great, but it's going to be good enough for TNT. Otherwise, they wouldn't develop the show. They have to be okay. Everybody thinks AEW's ratings are in the shitter and they suck and all of this. I'm like, well, the network they're on doesn't seem to mind. Network seems to like these numbers, seems to be satisfied with these numbers enough to where they're giving them not only an hour after Dynamite now, but 2 more hours on Saturdays. So why in the world do you think that AEW, the wheels are coming off and they're going to be out of business soon? The opposite is actually happening. So good for them. We'll see. Just don't fuck it up. Don't let Collision become what Rampage became. And like we said, Discovery Plus and HBO Max are now going to merge to form Max. So that's all it's going to be called, is just Max. They have a rollout date set for May 23rd. That date always sticks out because that's the anniversary of Owen Hart's death. And it would be awesome if AEW can get a streaming deal on Max as well. What a summer they could have here, guys. With, maybe bringing in some free agents, a CM Punk return to the company, a successful Wembley show, now a streaming platform where you can catch all of the TV, the old Dynamites, or, maybe pay-per-views if they go the PLE route, who knows. But I think it's essential for AEW as a company, given the landscape of how we consume media, to get a streaming platform. They absolutely have to. I think they're kind of overdue for this. So this platform makes the most sense. Tony Khan, get on this, make a streaming deal happen, because Peacock's a pain in the ass to navigate, but I'm glad we have it. Otherwise we wouldn't even be able to do our watch-alongs every Sunday without Peacock. Otherwise I'd be like, go get your DVD player out. So you need a streaming platform. And I hope that in the future, they have some sort of content on Max, maybe even that Wembley Stadium show. I think that's going to do it for AEW, although since we're on the subject of AEW, let's stick with it here. Let's talk briefly about this past week's Dynamite, because I want to talk about the Jeff Hardy return as well. Dynamite this week was in the old Mecca. When they said they were in Milwaukee, I could tell immediately from the building. I'm like, that's the old Mecca. I don't know what it's called now, but WWE used to run pay-per-views there all the time. I know they ran King of the Ring 96 in that building, and Over the Edge, the one with Austin and Dude Love in the main event. I think both of those shows were in the same building where Dynamite was on Wednesday. So that was cool. Pretty good card, although there were a couple things I did not like. What I did like was the opening match with Darby Allin and Swerve Strickland. That was really good. Darby beating Swerve a second time with that Last Supper pinning combination. And they had Prince Nana out there and Brian Cage, because I guess the Swerve's mogul has merged with the Embassy, I think is what's happening here. So they were out there a little bit, but in the end, Darby still got the win. MJF then came out, had a promo with Darby Allin. They exchanged words, and they're setting up, of course, the big Pillars match at Double or Nothing in Vegas, which is going to be really, really fun. And after that, Sting comes out. After Darby and MJF have their words, Sting comes out and has a pretty fun little promo there with MJF, talks about his history, talks about Joker Sting. He name drops Cody a couple of times, how Cody was Max's support system, just like he's Darby's support system, puts over Ric Flair, shouts out the NWO, and even says that it's almost over for Showtime. And we've heard the rumors that Sting is going to step away finally from wrestling officially when his current deal with AEW is up, which apparently is this year in 2023, and we might finally be coming to the end of Sting. I really hope they give him some sort of a fun send-off or something like that. I suppose that Tony Khan could always re-sign Sting. We saw him nearing the end of his career a couple times in TNA, only to come back. And maybe Sting could still be a personality, but at this point, whatever he is in age, 62 or something, I think he should officially retire. But having Sting, maybe sign a Legends deal or have some sort of a deal with the company where he can show up from time to time, do guest commentary, do interviews or whatever, would still be cool to see Sting. But being out of the ring completely, no more matches, no more angles, or being involved in storylines. According to Sting, this is going to be it for him this year, and hopefully AEW gives him a really nice and proper send-off officially when that ends. So he kind of alluded to all of those things, but basically reiterated to MJF that Darby Allin absolutely will be a world heavyweight champion one day, and he could very well likely take it from him at Double or Nothing. So that was one of the parts of Dynamite that I did like. What I did not like was the Will Hobbs Wardlow shit. My God, how many times have we seen this trope over the years? I kind of thought it was a little bit cheap. Will Hobbs shows up in this car, this custom car. I mean, how many times have we seen this in WWE? Dating all the way back to The Rock's Lincoln Continental being ran over by Austin's monster truck, Vince McMahon's Corvette filled with cement. We've seen cars picked up with forklifts and dropped. Braun Strowman's tipped him over with his bare fucking hands. spray paint on limos, you name it. If somebody has all the lowriders, the JBL cars, you know it. If anybody has any sort of special vehicle and they are shown on camera driving that special vehicle to the building, that special vehicle is going to get fucked up. And I think you'd have to be an idiot if you're a professional wrestler to have some fly-ass ride all pimped out and custom to your liking, and then you voluntarily drive that to the most unsafe environment it could ever be. And you do that willingly. And then you leave it there and then go have a match in the ring and just trust that nobody's going to fuck with it. Come on, Will Hobbs. So you knew that was going to happen. He squashes poor Silas Young in his hometown in 40 seconds, beats the hell out of him. And then they show Wardlow showing up, big surprise, out in the parking lot area. He sees Hobbs' car, and what does he do? Takes the baseball bat, starts bashing it, bashes its windows in, drives a forklift into it, gets off the forklift before he puts it in park, and it just continues to drive and smash into the car, which was kind of funny. But that whole angle is old. Like, it's just, that's not creative. I mean, it's not really that effective of a way to get heat in my mind, because it's a typical storyline trope that we've seen a million times, and we just didn't need to see that again. I think better of Wardlow. I think more of him than this, and I think more of Hobbs than this. The TNT title has been the most exciting championship in that company, arguably, and it feels like it's really cooled off since Hobbs won the title. And I think it should have been the opposite. I was rooting for Will Hobbs to win the title. They should put some gold around this guy's waist. Maybe it was the alliance with QT Marshall that screwed everything up or made fans disinterested in a Hobbs title run. But I feel like it's almost hurting him, and I like Hobbs way too much, and I don't like seeing this happen to him. I was hoping a championship win would have the opposite effect. I'm ready for another badass. I'm like a badass Brock heel. I'm ready for a badass heel who just wins matches on his own by himself clean. You don't get those guys very often. Hell, even Roman is requiring a ton of help. Think of how dominant Roman has been. Well, he's been being helped in every single match he's been winning lately with Solo Sikoa or the Bloodline or whatever. It was getting to the point there where Brock, even as a heel, was just beating everybody clean. Did not matter with your John Cena or Roman Reigns or whoever you are, or the Undertaker at WrestleMania 30. He was just going out there and murdering motherfuckers clean. And I want another guy like that, a scary heel that you can be like, holy shit. And Will Hobbs at least physically fits that bill. But I think the association with QT Marshall and how he won the title and the things he's been doing since hasn't been doing Hobbs's character any favors. And that sucks because he's a champion now. So hopefully this can get a little bit more interesting, but it might not last because I believe they have Hobbs and Wardlow set for Wednesday for the championship this week. So they might take the belt off of Hobbs already, but hell, at this point, I would either take the belt off of Hobbs, but if Hobbs is going to win, no more of this cheap with QT Marshall's help shit. I would have Hobbs just beat Wardlow clean in the middle of the ring is what I would do. By the way, I hope Aaron Solo is okay. I think Silas Young got put through a table. So did Solo, because after Wardlow was done fucking up Hobbs' car, he came out to the stage there and attacked Hobbs and then put Aaron Solo through a table, and he caught his head on the edge of the table. Looked gnarly. Hopefully he's okay. But that whole situation, I like the Hobbs and Wardlow matchup. I like the two guys in a feud together, but just so far I haven't liked what they've done in the story. I feel like the two could be doing way better stuff than what they've been doing, and didn't love much of that. Did love the Orange Cassidy and Buddy Matthews match for the All-Atlantic Championship, which was very, very good. Some of those shots too, because Buddy, drastically outweighs Orange Cassidy. A couple of those knees that Cassidy took. My God, that kid can sell. Super good match. Mousetrap for the win. Orange Cassidy had mushy hands, kind of, how Seth attacked the hands of Logan Paul. Same thing happened to Cassidy. So his Superman punch wasn't as effective. He had to rely on the mousetrap, which commentary put over as a last resort type of move for him, and he was able to get the win and retain his title over Buddy Matthews. Orange Cassidy is super over. Loved that match. Another match I loved was the absolute demolishing of Brandon Cutler and Michael Nakazawa by the BCC. Holy shit. Mox and Claudio are going to face in a tag team match Brandon Cutler and Michael Nakazawa. Before the match even starts, they jump him and open both guys up. Brandon Cutler is busted wide open under his mask, so he's got like the blood going underneath his clear mask. It looked crazy. Nakazawa's busted open as well, and the heels just dominate. It's just a complete murder in the middle of the ring. I mean, they've got them both in the ring at the same time, just hammering elbows into their face. These guys are snot and blood and teeth and skin flying off these guys' faces. It's just disgusting. And they are just stomping and kicking them into the dirt to the point where the ref was like, fuck it, bell, ring the bell. It's over. It was just two guys beating the fuck out of two other guys until the referee rang the bell. It was great. Loved every second of it. And then they get on the mic. Moxley gets on the mic and shit talks the Elite. And that's when Kenny Omega's music hits. He wasn't supposed to be here. His music hits. He comes down the aisle. Blackpool Combat Club is focused on him. Bucks hit the ring from behind. Super kick to Claudio and Wheeler Yuta. And they get Moxley cornered in the ring, and they bust out the flathead screwdriver that he tried to use, I think, the previous week. And they were able to get away and kind of retreat, and the Elite are back together in full force. And it seems like they are setting this up for Blood and Guts. So I'm curious if we're going to get the Elite versus Blackpool at Double or Nothing in Blood and Guts, or if we get some other version of a match between these two. Maybe it's a singles between Mox and Kenny again, or something like that. And then you save Blood and Guts for TV. I don't know how that's going to work, but it feels like as brutal as this feud is getting, we're going to have some double cage action in the future of these two factions. And the Elite and the Blackpool Combat Club has been a lot of fun. I've loved all of this so far. I'm a big Kenny fan. I'm a big Mox fan. I'm a big all these guys fan. So that was really fun. And then probably the biggest news of the show took place next. We have Ethan Page in the ring. He's cutting a promo on Matt Hardy. Now, I have to be honest here. I'm so lost in whatever this storyline is with Ethan Page owning Hardy, and he still works for him, and there's the Hardy family office and the firm and all this stuff. It's a big fucking mess to me. I don't get it. So Hardy comes out. And they have a little back and forth. Or Hardy and Isaiah Cassidy come out, a little back and forth, and Ethan Page is demanding to know what Matt put in some sort of contract, and Matt Hardy says that he gets to pick the match and the stipulation for the next time that his group faces Page's group. And as they are coming down to the ring, they are blindsided from behind, as Matt Hardy and Cassidy, that is, are walking closer to the ring. They are destroyed, especially Cassidy, by Big Bill and Lee Moriarty, who come in and nail them from behind. And Big Bill hits Cassidy so hard, you'd think that there's some personal beef between the two of them, because he hit him really hard, and he just came and almost went face first into the apron, you know, the support beam of the apron. It just looked terrible. You got to be more careful, Big Bill. That was not safe, not cool at all. You are way bigger than that guy, and you ran into him like you were tackling him on the 1 yard line with 1 second left in the fourth quarter of the Super Bowl. That was ridiculous. Super dangerous there, but almost killed poor Isaiah Cassidy. Moriarty and Big Bill continue the attack. Hook then comes out. He starts fighting a little bit, but he gets stopped as well. And then you have Big Bill and Moriarty and Ethan Page with all three guys down, Hook, Hardy, and Cassidy. And then you hear the Hardy Boys music, and you know it's not Matt. And here comes Jeff. Jeff Hardy with a chair returns after nearly a year. I don't remember when the DUI took place, but I think it was shortly after Double or Nothing last year. Makes his return, clears all the heels out. Matt Hardy and Jeff have a big hug in the middle of the ring. And I think this is great for Matt Hardy. I'm glad he had this moment. Matt's great. I've always loved the Hardy Boys. I've always been big fans of theirs as being fellow North Carolina boys and seeing them wrestle when they were so young back in the day. But that does not mean I am in any way comfortable with this Jeff Hardy return. Jeff Hardy proved beyond a shadow of a doubt last year that there will never be an end to this for him. Even when you think he is completely free and clear and his demons are behind him, and even if multiple years go by of good behavior, they can turn and come crashing down in a second. Jeff Hardy as much as I love him and I want nothing but the best for him and for him to have a happy ending, I no longer trust him at all to be able to keep his shit together, because he's been given opportunity after opportunity after opportunity, been forgiven on multiple occasions, not only by his various employers. Do you realize that AEW, WWE, and TNA have all had to forgive Jeff Hardy for fucked up shit? All of them. Not to mention the countless amount of lives this guy has put at stake every time he's gotten behind the wheel of a car drunk, which has happened a lot of times. Even when he doesn't have a license, which he currently doesn't, it's suspended for 10 years, does not mean he can't get behind the wheel and take the life of another person while he's under the influence. And now he's back on the road, back taking bumps. The Hardy Boys are clearly physically way past their prime. And this is coming from someone who loves them probably more than anybody else. They're going to go down as one of my favorite teams in WWE history. They were so unique, so different. And when they were at their peak, there weren't any teams in the history of the business that were better in my mind. But now we are to the point where these guys are as old, if not older than me, with the careers that they've had. They are Matt Limps around the ring. You know, Jeff Hardy is still doing the Swanton bombs, but apparently it's really painful for him. If Jeff Hardy is back now, all I want, I think what's best for us as fans, is just to get some sort of little mini run here from the Hardys, and let's close the book. Let's close the book on it, because, you know, you have to make sure you capitalize on an opportunity to have a happy ending. And if Jeff Hardy is clean right now, at least currently, it would be great if he could get back in the ring, have a couple of matches, and then be done, because I just don't think being on the road full time is what Jeff Hardy needs. The physical, you know, with his physical situation now and his age and where he is, I just don't see a full-time main roster run possible or necessary for Jeff Hardy at all. So if he's back, I know he couldn't come back until he completed the rehab and his legal troubles were behind him. His legal troubles are now behind him. He's got that suspension to deal with, but he's got no more upcoming court dates or anything like that. So now that he's back, I just think that hopefully his return can be short and sweet, and the Hardys can have some sort of a nice closure to their careers. Now, if Matt wants to continue to be an on-air personality or wrestle from time to time or whatever, fine. But Jeff Hardy being back, I just think that whatever kind of current deal he has right now just should be the end of it soon. I think they should be out of the ring before they do any damage to their legacies, because I love the Hardys way too much to see that happen. But I guess, you know, in reality, I guess a Jeff Hardy return had to have happened. If it wasn't Tony Khan, somebody else, if it wasn't WWE or AEW, somebody else would have brought Jeff Hardy in. So at least with AEW, he has an employer that's going to at least, you know, make him get help if he needs it. But given the run that the Hardys have had, the careers that they've had, how long they've been a tag team, and how many eras their run has spanned, I just think as a fan, I need closure, and I hope that Jeff Hardy's run can be healthy, positive, he's in a good place, stays in a good place, and him and Matt can have some sort of a run that might put a nice little cherry on top of the Hardy Boy legacy. As a fan, that's what I want the most with Jeff's return. As a human being, I just want Jeff Hardy to stay responsible. If he's going to come back and he swears he's clean again, then at least have the respect of the other lives that are on the road, of the other wrestlers in your locker room that can be affected by the decisions you make as well. To all the fans you now have an obligation to, now that you're back under contract to a company, and your boss who's put up with a lot of your shit. If you don't do it for yourself, do it for all of us. Because, man, I don't know how many chances Jeff Hardy expects fans to give him. He's already like 5 chances past his allotment in my mind. And so now that he's back again, forgive me for being cynical. I'm the one who tries to like to be positive and be as positive and glass half full and silver lining as possible. But I don't think anybody can blame me, or I can't blame any of you for being a little bit kind of unfazed by this Jeff Hardy return, because we've been burned so many times by him. So if you're going to come back, Jeff, great. Just keep your shit together and don't put any more lives in danger, disappoint your family, your peers, yourself, or us anymore. Please, Jeff. And best of luck to you. Main event on Dynamite was Chris Jericho taking on Keith Lee, which was an interesting match. Jericho pulled some shenanigans to win, and at the end of the match, Adam Cole came down, knelt down in front of Keith Lee, gave him a little fist bump. We remember their history from NXT. That was kind of cool that they at least acknowledged that a little bit. And after that, as Cole is walking away, he gives Jericho the little side eye there. So they're definitely looking to a Double or Nothing showdown for Jericho and Adam Cole. And that should be a good one. Now, next week, we've got Jay White, who they only had a video package featuring Jay White this week after his debut the week before. That was kind of a poor use of Jay White on Wednesday. He's taking on Commander. We've got the Acclaimed and Billy Gunn taking on the Jericho Appreciation Society TNT Championship. Powerhouse Hobbs defending against Wardlow. The Elite will speak. Chris Jericho will confront Adam Cole, and Britt Baker and Jamie Hayter will team up to take on the Outcasts, Tony Storm and Ruby Soho. So that's what's going on next week on Dynamite. That is a lot of AEW information to open up the show. Sorry about that. We went on for about an hour and a half about AEW. That is crazy. Let's move on. Speaking of people coming and going, there are some rumors involving Drew McIntyre, who I don't think has been on TV since WrestleMania, and I think they might have even pulled him from SmackDown. Was he advertised for SmackDown, and then they pulled him? Something there. Drew, I don't think, has been seen. And there are talks that his contract is going to be up this year, and he is opting to not resign, but to kind of wait and see. And I think that's exactly what he should be doing. If that's McIntyre's true plan and these reports are accurate, he's a smart man, because that's exactly what I would be doing. If I'm in a position and I'm in WWE right now and my contract is coming up this year, I ain't signing shit until I see how the transaction and the sale goes through, make sure that all gets done, and get an idea of how Endeavor owns WWE is going to offer and structure contracts. What's going to change? Can I get more money than I would have before or less? You know, plus now that you have Tony Khan, who isn't going to really have to answer to too many people when it comes to approving contracts and whatnot, he can just outright outbid anybody that he sees fit. And I feel like Drew McIntyre, as a main eventer, almost might have a better chance in AEW these days than WWE, because WWE already put him over, but unfortunately the pandemic screwed all of his shit up. And he was over then. His response when he won the Royal Rumble was huge. It would have been so great to see him get that moment in Tampa, beating Brock Lesnar, winning the title in front of a huge audience. It would have been great for him. He got robbed of that, has never really seen and found his way back to the championship, even though I think he's won the title. He hasn't, had a moment like that. And every encounter he's had with Roman Reigns, he's come on the losing end of. So I feel like AEW could use him as a, big time dominant world championship contender there if they wanted. I don't see how you don't offer him everything possible, because I think he can at this point offer more to AEW in terms of roster strength than he could to WWE, because WWE's strong with or without Drew. And without Drew there, I feel like WWE would probably keep him around just to keep him away from AEW at this point. So if I'm McIntyre, I'm at least exploring my options, and I'm going to just try to get the most money. I think McIntyre has been treated well since his return to the company in WWE. They put the belt on him and always have him involved in shit. And he's always on TV. So he's not mistreated in any way in WWE. I'm not saying that. But, and so that's what puts Drew in a good situation, is what I'm saying, is that he knows he can stay there for money, and he might be able to get even more and go jump over there and go work for Tony Khan. Who knows? But we'll keep an eye on the Drew McIntyre situation. Hopefully, we have not seen the last of him, although at WrestleMania, after that triple threat match, I don't think this was shown on TV, him and Sheamus shared an embrace for the live crowd, and it was really touching. It got a pretty good pop from the audience. I don't know if they might have shown that on a replay or if they've shown it on social media in WWE, but maybe there was more behind that hug than we thought. Maybe Drew's intention even then was, hey, I might not be back until my contract is either up or until I re-sign. And maybe that's his way of him and Sheamus having a goodbye moment together. Maybe that's what it meant. I don't know. But if McIntyre's contract is up and I'm sitting in Drew McIntyre's chair, then I am waiting to see what kind of deal I can get and what kind of money I can be offered, because that's what it's all about. It would be silly to not do that. You should try to get the best deal. You know what I mean? talk a little bit about the WWE draft. The date is set for that. They did announce that last night on SmackDown, correct? April 28th and May 1st. So April 28th will be SmackDown, and then the following Monday, they will wrap up the WWE draft. I think some of the obvious moves they're going to make is Judgment Day, because Rhea Ripley's the SmackDown Women's Champion, so I feel like they'll move the whole crew over there to either continue to torment Ray or maybe move Ray back to Raw. I feel like the Street Profits could get split up, although in the past, they've never... those early drafts, they were splitting up teams, but in recent years, they're drafting teams and factions as units. So I don't know how they're going to explain splitting the Street Profits up, if you're going to do that now, or if you just make that a new rule and that's how you do it. I think Cody could go to Fox. Bigger ratings are on Fox. That might be where they want Cody. I could see Seth Rollins and Becky moving to Fridays as well. I could see Charlotte moving to Mondays. Who do you guys see moving where? I think that there's lots of moves that you could make that would be interesting, but like I've been complaining about ever since the draft rumor or Triple H's announcement, was that the draft sucks and the draft is crap. And I think the draft is meaningless because you can just put guys on both shows, guys or gals, anytime you want, and then come up with that. What was that rule they did? Remember a couple of years ago? It was like there was a superstar spit swap or something. What was it? And they came up with this bullshit rule where they can move up to 4 people per month, and then within the first week they're breaking their own rule, whatever that was. It's just silly. So and plus now they've gotten so lazy with it where it's just on the Tron, they spin through all the wrestlers and then they stop on one and be like, oh, that's who it's going to be. Like, it's just not fun. It's just not fun at all. So I don't really give a shit about the draft, but maybe a Triple H, in control of creative draft might be a little bit more, optimism to it actually working and meaning something. So if you guys have suggestions on who you think would be the best and, make the most sense in terms of which wrestlers could go where, who would be better on SmackDown, who needs a fresh environment, fresh opponents, they can move a lot of people around. And I think the undercard is going to move around a lot. But in terms of top of the card, obviously Roman and Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, I don't even know if they can be drafted if they're the champions of both shows right now as it is. So I don't know how that's going to work. I'm sure WWE will start explaining that to us as we get closer, but I usually don't get too excited for drafts, and I'm honestly not that excited about this one either. Let's also talk a little bit about King and Queen of the Ring, which was set for Saudi Arabia, still is, although now they are calling it Night of Champions. Now, this is a decision that I don't care about. I'm fine. Call it Night of Chicken Fuckers. I don't care. I just don't understand why they even bother making decisions like this. They don't want a King and Queen of the Ring, but both of those tournaments are on the show. So what was wrong with just calling it the King and Queen of the Ring? Instead, they're calling it Night of Champions, maybe so they can add some other matches on there. Also, to the fellow who brought up the tag team titles needing to be dropped because Sammy and Kevin don't work Saudi Arabia shows, I said, no, they don't, because the King and Queen of the Ring are on these shows, or is on the show, and that's going to dominate the card. So you could probably get away with just not having a tag team title match on that show. But I forgot that it's called Night of Champions. So who was our friend? Whose idea I shot down? Might actually be right. Jordan Smith earlier when he said that. I kind of forgot that they had changed the name to Night of Champions. So if they intend to have the King and Queen of the Ring crowned and all of the championships on the line, then yeah, maybe they do have to drop the belts. Maybe they even have to do it temporarily. It will be interesting to see how WWE manages that, because one thing that would piss me off is that if WWE actually took the belts off of them because of the stupid deal they have with Saudi Arabia. What I would do is I would just say, okay, fine, Saudi Arabia, we'll take the belts off of them for 1 week. That's what I would do. I would have, and not the Usos either. I would put Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn in a tag team title match against somebody. Usos interfere, cost Sami and Owens the championships. We have new tag team champions, Braun Strowman and Ricochet, or Viking Raiders, or whoever the fuck, doesn't matter. New tag team champions. They then go to Night of Champions to successfully defend their championships, come back, and the very first opportunity you get that very next TV, whether it's a Raw or SmackDown or whatever, rematch. Champions against Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, and they regain the titles. That's what I would do. Because that would almost, I guess you don't want to give the middle finger to the people you're doing business with, but that's what I would do. Like, here, fuck you. We're going to give you a different champion for 1 week. It's going to mean nothing, and then we're going to put the belts on the champions that we intended to have the belts on all along. Would be cool if they did that. That's what I would do, but what I want to do, or not what I would do, and what WWE does are usually on opposite ends of the spectrum there. Other than that, on my wrestling news, the only other thing I want to mention is wish the best to Mickie James. Mickie James, who is not cleared to compete to defend her championship, I believe, at Rebellion. She had to forfeit the title. It will now be Jordynne Grace against Deonna Purrazzo for the championship, and a lot of wrestlers have reached out to show Mickie James love on social media over the past couple of days. And it does sound like Mickie James, who already won a career match earlier on in the year to win that title, might be inching a little bit closer to retirement, and hopefully she can just go out on her terms. The belt and the hat and everything in the ring was a little bit concerning. Hopefully, if she is getting close to nearing the end of her career, she can have a final match still, and that can all still happen for her. But all the best to Mickie James. We've always been big Mickie James fans on this podcast. We wish her nothing but the best. Like I said, too, last night on SmackDown, I didn't catch it. It didn't look like a great show. I read through some of the results. The big news there was the return of Shinsuke Nakamura, who got a win over Madcap Moss. Great to see Nakamura back, who says he's now refreshed after going to Japan, working with the Great Muta. He is ready to rock and roll. Apparently, they are going to enter him into a feud with Karrion Kross, which I do think could be really good, but also not sure who's going to be babyface and heel in that. Maybe it's time to turn Kross babyface. But Shinsuke Nakamura is also a pretty good babyface, and fans were really happy to see him back. So that's kind of most of my notes there, although I do think there's a couple of things we can still discuss. Raw this past week, I didn't talk about Raw, but we were here to review the show on Monday, and we did talk all about the Trish Stratus heel turn. Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez won the tag team championships. And that's what was kind of the focal point of last Monday's show. But wasn't a bad Raw. They were plagued with travel issues, and they were able to have some changes and some rewrites in a way that was able to make the show actually more fun, if not as fun as it normally is. And Triple H managed it well. So that basically just leaves us with Vince McMahon. And the other big part of this episode was going to be about him, because there's been a lot of back and forth about Vince McMahon's involvement in creative, and there's been a lot of uncertainty. There's been a lot of frustration. There's been a lot of concern about what his role in the company actually will be. And now that we've seen WrestleMania come and go, and the post-Mania Raw in Staples Center come and go, Vince McMahon has not been seen backstage behind the scenes since. So once that happened, it kind of makes you wonder why. Because once the sale was announced, a lot happened in a short amount of time there. We had WrestleMania Night 1 and 2. The very next morning was when the sale was announced, and Vince McMahon was on CNBC discussing the sale, discussing the deal, and discussing his role, and even kind of downplayed his role in creative, and that he wouldn't be in the weeds and all of that nonsense, only to be at Gorilla that very same night on a show that was reportedly riddled with rewrites, changes, last-minute changes, a lot of things that wrestlers typically saw when Vince McMahon was heading things up behind the scenes. He was there, and all of those same issues were back. So it started lending credibility to the belief that Vince McMahon actually was back and in full control of creative. So we all, myself included, went into full-blown panic mode. And I was very concerned, because the last thing we need is for Vince McMahon to come back and screw up this creative that's been somewhat on the ball over the last 10 months. It's not perfect. Triple H still makes a shit ton of mistakes. I believe he made a colossal one in the main event of Night 2 of WrestleMania. But still, as WWE-ish as Triple H can tend to be, and how he's not perfect, he's still a hell of a lot better than Vince McMahon. And since He has taken over. The storylines have had a little bit more continuity to them. He's, fixed some stupid gimmicks and fixed some dumb changes that Vince McMahon made for no reason. The LA Knight stuff and giving guys their names back and things like that. Bringing people back into the company, rehiring them even. And how awkward did it have to feel for them to be back in the company and seeing Vince McMahon there? Last time he was there, his regime fired them, and now they've got to work with him. It had to be weird. It was awkward. It was frustrating talent. And there was a major blow to the locker room morale right after WrestleMania, basically just due to the blatant dishonesty. And if you're a wrestler in WWE, I would feel misled. I would feel lied to, and I'd be pretty pissed too. And a lot of them apparently were. And there was a lot of wrestlers not happy with this idea that Vince McMahon was back. Was it ever confirmed full blown that he was back? No. If anything, it was the opposite. They said that Triple H is the head of creative. He's the head creative officer or whatever his title now is. That is him. Vince McMahon will have input. He will have influence. There will be communication between him and Triple H, but ultimately it's going to be Triple H's call. And then they immediately contradicted themselves by having Vince McMahon there at creative, at Gorilla, pulling strings. He was there. So since then, he wasn't on the following week's SmackDown, and he wasn't on Raw this past week either. And I don't think he was at Gorilla last night for SmackDown. So he is not there. He won't be at shows. And honestly, fans, I think that's the best we can hope for in this situation, because I don't care what Vince McMahon does behind the scenes and whatever he wants to do back there in his new role and when Endeavor takes over, as long as he's not behind the scenes dealing with stuff. And, it might still be a situation where he's going to have creative input, but maybe he even realizes the backlash that caused, the morale issues that his return caused in his locker room, the feedback, the backlash he got from the audience that I'm sure Endeavor is hearing. So maybe Vince made the decision himself. Okay, I'm still going to be involved, but obviously it's obvious that I can't be at the show, because if I'm there, I'm at Gorilla. Word is going to get out that I'm there. Talent is going to be concerned that, they're going to be weird or nervous or whatever. It's best for my presence, my personal presence, to be absent, because that still doesn't mean anything. He can phones still work. He can still text message Triple H. I want you to do this. I want you to do that. And I think with Vince, that's what he needs to do. So if we see a show, even last night on SmackDown did have a couple of Vince-ish tropes from what I could read. And if that's the case, then that probably means exactly what we know it to mean. Triple H is the one who's in charge publicly of creative, but he's going to have influence and input from his dad, and some of that input he might be forced into doing. We really don't know. But in terms of Vince just being present at TV, it's positive. It's positive if he's not. It's positive news if he's not there and if he stays away, because I think the talent can function with a lot less stress, not having that, what really is a dark cloud. I mean, Vince McMahon really is a dark cloud of shit hovering over WWE, dropping little droplets of shit on everybody. And just as much out of the spotlight as he can be, the better for not only that company's survival, but the sanity of the talent that works there and the staff. Now, no one really knew how, what Vince's true role would be even after the sale. And we really still don't know that once the sale is completed, if it's basically just going to be business as usual as it is now, or if there are going to be other elements of Vince we're going to see more of. But speaking on Light Shed Live, in an interview recorded way back on April 7th, about a week or so ago, Nick Khan was asked about McMahon's creative involvement in WWE. And this is what he said, and I quote, on Monday, April 3rd, when this deal was officially announced, Vince sent out a company-wide email to our 1,000 or so employees, including myself, and in the email, he laid out the structure of the new company. Specifically, he articulated that Paul Levesque remains the sole chief creative officer. Sole. How does that work? Does that mean that technically, because I'm in charge of the business side, the business, that I don't seek input from other people? I wouldn't seek input from Vince McMahon, who created this entire empire. That would be a mistake on my behalf. Paul and Vince, a family relationship, a relationship that spans back to the mid-90s. Paul is in charge of creative. If he wants input from Vince, or Vince has ideas that he and Paul are going to communicate, that's always going to be the case. We're lucky to have Vince. We're lucky to have Paul in control of creative. We're lucky that the setup that Vince created, that the company could continue to exist even when Vince stepped out for that 5-month period, the company kept flowing. We think the best organizations are set up that way, and that's why Vince set WWE up that way. So he's basically just, first of all, everything he probably says is a lie, but he is reiterating that Paul Levesque is the sole chief creative officer, but Vince McMahon is still Vince McMahon. They are father and son-in-law. And that's what I was even saying to a lot of the fans. I'm like, Triple H and Vince are probably communicating all the time. You don't know what the relationship is. I don't know if it's Vince McMahon just completely dominant over Triple H and you will do whatever I say, or if Triple H can be like, no, Dad, that's a stupid idea. We don't know the dynamic between those two. But one thing we do know is that no matter how good of an argument somebody presents to Vince, if he decides something, it's really hard to change his mind, and he can make these things happen. So regardless of who's in charge or who Nick Khan says is in charge, if Triple H has an idea that Vince McMahon adamantly hates, I think we all still feel like Vince McMahon has the power to override or overrule that, and probably will continue to have that power even after the Endeavor sale. But a lot of that still needs to be worked out. We still have to go through this months-long transition period of actually getting this deal finalized, and all of the approvals and signatures and all that shit that needs to happen still needs to happen, and the process of the turnover could take some time. So during that time, hopefully things just remain the way they are, where Vince McMahon at best is limited to text messages with his son about TV, and that's it. Not showing up there in the jet with his weird mustache and sitting at Gorilla and making all sorts of stupid changes to a product that he's been out of touch with for the better part of a couple of decades. It's time for that to not be a thing. So hopefully it remains to not be a thing, and at least for now, it appears that Vince McMahon is out of our lives. For now, from a creative standpoint, he's always going to have an influence, but really, this is one of the better case scenarios. I know it doesn't seem like it, but it's the better case scenario because it's basically what's been happening for the past 10 months. Nothing has really changed here. Even when Vince left last year, we were all under the assumption that he probably still has communication with Triple H because he's still a board member and he did muscle his way back into the board, and he's still there and he's still a controlling owner and has all the shares and the voting power and all of that. So regardless of what he tweeted out about his retirement, and regardless of the image that WWE is trying to portray to its staff and talent and the public of Triple H being in charge of creative, we all knew, how can he be fully in charge of creative? How can a man like Vince McMahon, who wants to micromanage every aspect of creative, he's been doing that for the past 40 years, he's just going to turn it off like a light switch and just not be involved at all? And it's not like Triple H isn't a guy that he knows well. He's not some executive employee that they hired 3 years ago. This man's married to your daughter. He was a wrestler for you. You guys have a 25, 26 plus year relationship. Of course they're going to be talking. So even before the Endeavor sale, we figured there was probably a lot of Vince McMahon communication, or at least input on the show. Ultimately, Triple H has the final say and was doing some great things and can do what he wanted, but nobody ever truly believed that Vince McMahon was completely gone from influence. So that really just means that nothing's different than before. Vince McMahon is still behind the scenes. He's still going to have some input. He's still going to communicate with Triple H, but he's not in charge of creative at Gorilla with a headset on anymore. That's good news. I know it doesn't seem like it, but this is going to be a process. Vince McMahon is going to be, just like you got to be careful when you remove a tick, that's just sucking the life out of you. There's a process to it. And you got to be very careful, and you're not going to be able just to rip Vince away without doing some serious damage by doing that. So you have to just play it cool, wait it out. The dude's only going to get older, and eventually there will come a time where there will be no Vince McMahon anywhere. But until we get to that point, I think, we got to just be patient on the process. And we've made a very, very big step here in the last year. And that step is Vince McMahon permanently away from Gorilla and running TV. It's been nearly a year. It's going to be a year pretty soon since we've had him there doing that. And so that's still good news. You got to look at the good and the positive in that, and things could be way worse because this Endeavor sale could have said, oh, Vince is right back. We're going to give him his old job back. Vince is your sole chief creative officer, and he will be sitting next to Bruce Pritchard every week producing TV. That didn't happen. So if that did, then yeah, I'd be really upset. But luckily it didn't. And for now, I feel like in terms of Vince McMahon's wrath, we're safe. We're at least safer. We're as safe as we can be. We might still be in the middle of the Arctic with killer whales all around us, but we're on an iceberg and we're safe for now until they knock us off and eat us. But it will happen. But we're safe for now, and that's what's important. I would love it if you guys would hit the thumbs up button with a few more of those likes. That would be great. Let me cruise over here to the chat, knock out any other super chats that might be waiting for me, and then I have got to get out of here because it's another lovely Saturday night at work. I'm just stoked for it, but it's my weekend coming up. We're going to be here watching Backlash 2003 tomorrow, and I'm ready. Who is it? Is it Stone Cold? I think it's you, man. Stone Cold and maybe Zach. Yo, appreciate that $5 from you, my man. Good to see you back from my track meet. Ready to hear some good mic work. I hope you ran hard, my man. I hope you ran hard, and I hope you won. Super J Cena, I don't think Jeff Hardy is even that old. Well, he's not that old. He's just my age, but for the type of style and the bumps that he's taken and the falls that he has and the aches and pains that his body must be going through, I would imagine just walking hurts. Much less swantoning people. You still believe in him? He says he wants to redeem himself. He's said that before. I want Jeff to redeem himself too. But I'm going to remain cynical about Jeff forever. I'm not going to be able to turn that off. Zach Goller, good to see you, my buddy. Appreciate the 5 from you. What's up, bro? Are you going to be going to Double or Nothing again this year? And is Adam Cole the one to dethrone MJF? I would love it if he was. I think MJF probably will survive the Pillars match. Double or Nothing is the plan, although we're not quite sure now. It has always been the plan, but we were just talking about it last week, that a couple of things going on might make it difficult, and we might skip it, but I'm not sure yet. Not that I still want to go, but we have to be realistic and responsible at the same time. And Elizabeth and I were just talking about that a few days ago, and Double or Nothing has now changed from a guarantee to being up in the air. So I will see. But if I'm going, we'll be hanging out, as I will be with a bunch of people. We will see how it goes. Hoping to go, but might have to not. And plus, the Wednesday Dynamite after Double or Nothing is right here in San Diego, and I'm going to be going to that too. So it's going to be busy. Yo, Nikita, appreciate the comment there. 7-month member. Speaking of London, have you ever been to Europe? No, I said that earlier. I have never been to the UK. So maybe I should go to the Wembley show. What do I do over there? Can I hang out with you guys? Can I hang out with you? Nikita, if I go, that would be awesome. But no, I've never been. What a flight that would be from here. Holy shit. Stone Cold, 2 more from you, man. Appreciate that. I was coaching at the track meet. Okay, you were coaching, not running. Well, I hope your kids ran well and they ran hard, and I hope you won. Still hope you won. Anyway, I appreciate you guys being here this afternoon. I need to wrap things up and get out of here because I've got a big one at work. But we will be back tomorrow night. We're going to be watching Backlash 2003. I have not watched Goldberg and The Rock since the night it happened. I have never watched this pay-per-view since it aired 20 years ago. So we're going to watch The Rock's last match in the company for quite some time as he took on Goldberg and a bunch of other awesome matches as well. We will be doing that tomorrow night, so please join us and enjoy the rest of your Saturday night and Saturday evening. Appreciate you being here for this nearly 2-hour podcast of me rambling about nonsense. You guys are the best. I will catch you tomorrow night for Backlash. Until then, y'all be cool. Peace.